Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We know that your time is valuable. We know that for many of us, we are experiencing a dry day, which is sort of rare in the farming community. So we do thank you for taking that time to be with us. Very quickly, I've got a couple of things that I just want to share with you. I'm going to share my screen. With you now, and I'm going to put that up and then switch over to this view and move you. And so what I wanted to talk with you all about is the Missouri Agriculture Program. Missouri Agribility is a program that's federally funded, and it's in collaboration with the University of Missouri. And Lincoln University has a subaward from this, and what we do is we work throughout the state of Missouri with farmers that have disabilities. And we can do on-farm assessments. We can talk about some of what the challenges are if you have a disability, and we can even recommend specific tools to use, working with vocational rehabilitation services and rehab services for the blind to help you ultimately kind of achieve that goal, which is to keep you on farm and farming. Now, we all very much are aware of what's happening with COVID. That's the reason why we're meeting like this today. I'm not saying that any of us like it anymore than you do. But what I did wanted to sort of highlight for us today is Lincoln University on our website, which is lincolnu.edu. We have an actual web page that is live for the coronavirus. And what it does is it goes through research-based information and provides you with sort of the most up-to-date view and snapshot of what's happening. There are resources that are listed in here. If we scroll down, we see that we can get into agriculture and how this affects us, and you can click through any of those. That is completely a free resource for you. And then sort of as a last thing, I wanted to highlight that in collaboration with our partners at the University of Missouri, we have some tips for coping with stress during these times, because it is very real and we're very mindful of that. If you are in the state of Missouri, here are some phone numbers that you can keep in mind, or you can jot down to call. Excuse me, let me move that out of your way. If you have any questions or concerns, again, please don't be afraid to reach out to talk with us. Also, I know that our partners at the University of Missouri are offering 5 free visits based on clients' needs by video or by telephone, if you should so choose to use that resource. It's free to you. If you have any questions or concerns, please say this in the chat, and we will do our best to reach out to you. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your time. Turn it back over to David.
Move me out of that. All right, real quick, some of you may not know what Lincoln University is. We're located in Jefferson City, Missouri. We are the other land grant university. University of Missouri is an 1862 land grant. Lincoln University is an 1890s land grant. So there's an agricultural school, there's research, and there is extension outreach, and Sean and I are part of the extension program. We basically work a lot with beginning farmers, small farmers. We do a lot with fruits, vegetables, the horticultural crops, direct marketing, and those sort of things. But today, as we're working with farmers, as a farmer myself, I want to give the farmer opportunities to tell us what their concerns are, what their questions are, what the barriers are. How can we develop programs to help you instead of us developing programs and telling you what you need to know? That's totally backwards in academia, and we're going to change that in how we work through this program. So in the chat, if you all would take, and if you want to give us your name, your location, that's fine. We want to know if you're going to grow fiber, if you want to grow seed, if you want to do CBD, how many acres, to kind of give us an idea are out there for farming this year. And later on, when we get through some of these things, we want to open it up for questions. So if you have a question and you want to put it in the chat, we'll try to get it answered that way. When we get through some things, we'll open it up for questions from the floor. So just be courteous of taking turns and getting your questions out there, and we'll try to get them answered. We also have some of the state specialists on the call today. And so if you've got a question about integrated pest management, pathology, those sort of things, if you put those in the chat, I'm sure that they will answer your questions as they come across. Where is the industry now? 2 years ago, CBD was $4,500 a kilo. Last year, $2,500 a kilo. Today's price for a kilo of CBD is down to $700. We've seen a decline in all the hemp prices from 50 to 80% in the last year. It's still a profitable crop. And being the first time that it grows in Missouri, there's a lot of questions. And we want to be able to design programs for research and for outreach to help you through this time, because we don't want anyone to fail. We talk a lot about sustainable agriculture in the Lincoln program, and the first rule of that is being profitable. If you're not profitable, you're not very sustainable. I visited with a processor yesterday to kind of get some ideas where things are. And if you've got your license and you're ready to grow, one thing I would strongly encourage you to do is make sure you have a contract with a processor, because that's how you're going to get stuff processed. We don't want to be like Kentucky, North Carolina, Tennessee, that ran into the problems that they did last year of growing it and then trying to market it, and there'd be no market for it. I also want, if you sign up with a processor, visit their facility, be on site, because last year in Kentucky especially, people were getting contracts from processors that didn't have facilities, didn't have equipment, thinking that they would get that, and then the venture capitalists pulled out and left these farmers with no market. The other thing that we're looking at in Missouri, talking to processors for CBD, and that's where I'm probably going to focus most of my talk today is on CBD, is they're finding that if you go above 10% oil in CBD, you're going to pass that 0.03 threshold for THC, which makes your crop destroyable. And so one of the programs that we're working with at Lincoln University is genomics. There's been no real research and a breeding program done for stabilization for genetics. And so we have one of the top soybean researchers that's worked with soybean genetics for 16 years that is setting up a genomics program to map the genes, put the breeding program so that we have regionally adapted, stabilized genetics. That I was been able to be in quite a few states in the last year. And one of the research projects I saw was done at K-State. They took 10 seeds out of a bag of cherry wine and grew each one of them individually. And then they analyzed each individual plant, and they were all over the board. As farmers, we know if we buy a bag of seed corn, it's going to turn out and look homogeneous across the entire crop. We don't have that in hemp yet. And that's one of the main areas that we're working in. The other thing that we're really concentrating on is regionally adapted varieties. Something that grows in Dunklin County is going to perform differently in Clark County. We have a wide variation in our climate in Missouri. So one of the things that we're working at is 5 different locations in each corner of the state and in central Missouri to plant 5 varieties of fiber, seed, and CBD, and get the analysis on all of those to see what the differences is from growing in Barton County to Atchison County. So we want to make sure that farmers are growing seed that is adapted to their region. We have the integrated pest management state specialist. As I've learned from around the country, corn earworm is a major problem. June bugs are a major problem. And how do we deal with those? Because there are no really good pesticides that deal with those. There's a lot of neem products that are out there, but what are some cultural things that we can do in growing this crop to mitigate some of our insect problems. The other area, we have the state plant pathologist on staff at Lincoln. So, you know, if you're growing something, there's always going to be a disease pop up. So when we look at the botrytises, the gray molds, these sort of things, those all attack the hemp plant. And how do we deal with those? Planting times, fertilization. We're looking at all those things in some of the research that we're doing and the trials that we're doing. Some of the processors that you can work with out there, instead of maybe just doing a contract and selling your crop to them, if you're into the farmer's market, direct marketing sort of thing, a lot of these out there will offer white labeling services to help you make your tinctures, your salves, your ointments that you can market as your own farm program. So be sure when you talk to a processor that some of those options are available to you through that processor to help you add value instead of just selling a raw crop, of changing that to a point that is direct to the consumers to increase your income. We're seeing that a lot right now in the meat industry, and I'm a meat farmer. We've been direct marketing meat for over 10 years, and right now people are running us crazy because they can't find it in the grocery store, but we're making more money than if we take stuff to the sale barn and sell it. So that's something that you might want to consider as growing your CBD crop or your hemp crop, of value adding it and selling it directly to increase your income. Can you use Japanese beetle treatments on the plants for June bugs? If Dr. Cam, if you're on there and you want to answer that question, that would be great at this time. And once again, you know, if everyone that's on the call right now, if you would go to chat and let us kind of know where you're located. You don't have to give us your name, but you know, what region you're in, what you plan on growing, if you want to grow fiber, seed, dual purpose, CBD, and how many acres you want to grow. This will kind of help us determine where we want to go with our research and outreach. Right now, I think, you know, I want to unmute everybody. And if you have direct questions, we'll do our best to answer those. So I want to hear from you.
Externally, let people like I can actually think funny. I think I'm in my head. Sometimes I think I'm a comedian, but I'm always.
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you.
Presenting, so I'm not always showing that.
Someone is talking on their cell phone, but they're also unmuted.
Oh, okay.
I muted them.
But we have, hi, I'm Maida from Florida, interested in industrial hemp fiber on 35 to 40 acres, working on plan and licensing. Hi, Maida from Florida. Here we go. Brent is 45 miles west of St. Louis, 1 acre CBD. Hi, Brett.
What are some concerns? What are some barriers, some questions that you might have going into this new venture? Is everybody settled? Has everybody found genetics that they need at this time? Have you got your seed started? I hear people typing.
Hey, we have Shelly from Northwest Johnson County, Missouri, 10 acres, but she doesn't say CBD or fiber. Okay, there's a question now, David. Can you see him?
Yes. Yes, as I'm talking to processors, they're finding that if they're getting in biomass that's like 12, 14, 16% CBD, it's running over the THC limit. And what has happened, this is coming in from other states that I talked to a processor that's here in Missouri. You get your test 15 days before harvest, and that's your legal test to sell it. But some of these farmers are waiting an extra 10 to 12 days before they harvest after they do their initial test for the state. And so there's, as your plant continues to mature, your THC content goes up. And so when they get it in and they run another test on it for the certificate of analysis, then they're rejecting it because it's so expensive to remove the THC from this product. So, that's what they're telling me, that looks like the ideal number right now is 10% CBD to keep it under 0.3% THC. We're looking at mold issues. There's a lot of work being done on ensiling right now. Kentucky's doing work on that. We've not done that yet. Most of the hemp, as you know, for CBD is hand harvested and dried, and then the buds are pulled off, and that's what's processed, not the entire plant, because that's where the trichomes and the oil is in the buds and the flowers. Usually hemp will dry down in about 6 to 10 days, being hung like it is in a tobacco barn or an open barn. I haven't seen too many mold issues. Most of the processors are asking to have a mold analysis done when you submit your COAs. So, mold is very hard to remove out from a product. So they want to make sure that they're getting something that's not going to cost them a lot of money or contaminated product, because this is medicine. People are using this as medicine that they're ingesting in their body. So they want to make sure that there's no mold in it. Is feminized seed best for CBD production, or is the dioecious variety suitable? We don't know all of these things yet. Feminized seed, okay, let me back up here a little bit. For CBD, you want female plants, because if they're not pollinated with a male plant to produce seed, they produce more CBD. When you have cross-pollination, it actually will lower the content of CBD, but as I've talked to some people, it also lowers the amount of THC if there are a few seeds in it. When you talk about the dioecious variety, you have male plants, female plants, both. And that's more into the fiber and the seed or the dual purpose crops. Usually the CBD level in a fiber or a seed crop is usually around 2 or 3%. And farmers that are growing for fiber or seed need to be growing for fiber or seed, because the processor's not going to touch a product that has 2 or 3% oil in it. We're 100 miles south of St. Louis. We intend to grow 1 acre this year for CBD as an experiment. We would really like to grow large-scale industrial fiber, but don't see a path forward without a local processor and end user. Yes, fiber processors. There is a company called Tiger Fiber, and they are in Columbia. They're getting up and running to process fiber. There's also a plant over on the western side between, I think it's right over into the Kansas border from Missouri, that is looking at putting up a fiber plant. The problem with fiber is it takes thousands of acres to run a fiber plant. And so until we can get to that volume, they're going to have to source it otherwhere. Be within 100 miles of a fiber plant, because you're handling it in big bales and transportation costs will eat you up. Let me go back up here some. Do you recommend test equipment to be used to check THC levels as we are growing? And yes, Absolutely. If you're going for CBD, you should probably start doing some testing right after flowering, because if you hit that 0.02 threshold, you need to harvest then. And so not go past then. And to know where you're at, you're going to probably need to be testing about every week or so to hit that threshold. A couple of the, well, in the small farm program right now, there are 4 of us that will have our hemp sampling license. And there are some other people on campus that have their hemp sampling license. You will have to go with a certified industrial hemp sampler that has a certificate from the Missouri Department of Agriculture to do that test 15 days before you harvest. And that will be your release record to move it into commerce. And so I would highly recommend, if you want to work with some of these hemp samplers, maybe talk to them way before you want to harvest, at 15 days before, and they could come and take some samples, or you could take your own samples and send them off to some labs. Lincoln will be setting up a hemp sampling lab to do some of them for the state of Missouri. And so that's one place that you could send some samples. There's other places around. You do not have to use a DEA lab at this time. You can use an ISO certified lab to do your samples. And I would use the same lab that you want to pre-sample that you would do your final samples to keep it. Machines calibrate differently at different places. So you want to make sure that you're using the same lab for all your testing. Dr. Babu talks, we're using both feminized and dioecious varieties, and we're hoping to set a good set of data. Like I said, this is all new. We're on the forefront of a new industry, and anything that we can do to research to make this a profitable crop, a sustainable crop in Missouri, that's what we're after. Is anybody having trouble finding seeds? Do you all have your seeds in place for planting this year? Are you having trouble getting your seeds started to transplant? That's one thing that you might want to look at CBD is not direct planting, because that's a valuable plant in a spot where, you're planting 200 to 2,300 plants per acre, whereas with you're doing fiber, you're sowing 600 to 800,000 seeds per acre. So you want those spots to be filled up with not have a dead spot in your field from having a vacant hole where you're planting. What are some of your challenges that you're running into? Are you having trouble finding a processor to get a contract? I know Missouri Hemp Association is putting together a list of processors, and would be a place to find contacts. Once again, do an on-site visit. Talk with the processor. Don't just talk with them on the phone. Go visit these places. Make sure they have the equipment in place. Make sure they have the expertise to do this process. And some of them actually have contracts to fill. And so they're looking for farmers right now to fill those contracts that they've got in place with other buyers. Dr. Babu, we have a question about, do we know what the lab test costs and the sampling cost? So I know that that's not been finalized yet, but when we look at other states, we're probably looking in the neighborhood of $30 to $50 a sample. if you test 15 days before harvest and are under the THC limit, but the processor's tests come in higher, then what happens? Do a retest. One of the things that you want to do when you sample is not just take one sample and send it in to get it analyzed. You can take a second sample at the same time and put that in the freezer and then send it in, because there's so much variation in a field at this time. So you could do a second test, done it by the same hemp sampler, and retest. You have that option. And the same thing with, you're talking about a processor, send multiple samples. They will usually test those at their own expense. And so you can kind of get a reading on what your crop is. So Dr. Babu said his lab will be doing CBD and THC for around $40 to $50 a test. And this is a specialized test that a certain machine is set only to do hemp sampling, and a dedicated technician that runs this machine. So there's, and they can do several hundred samples a day, so the turnaround should be fairly quick to get it back to everybody. Always good to test. Can we separate areas for testing purposes? Yes, you can definitely divide them by variety. I would divide them smaller down. I wouldn't want to do a 5-acre CBD field. I wouldn't do more than an acre for sampling, and you can divide those with a marker. You can do it with a grassy strip. And so if you do that, if you have one plot that goes hot, you just lose that plot. You don't lose the whole field. So definitely you want to take and divide your fields down no more than an acre for CBD.
David, would it help you if I read the questions?
Yeah, they're coming in faster than what I can read some of them.
Okay, so we see that Dr. Patel says there'll be LU Hemp Institute website updates in the coming weeks. MBake says, is testing done on the entire plant? So that goes to what we test, the apical branch. Also, has there been analysis of different parts of the plant, leaves, stems at different stages of growth to determine nutrient content or CBD content? So why don't you first speak to how much of a sample we're taking?
Okay, when sampling is done, they take about 8-inch samples with the bud, and you take those at different heights on the plant because it matures differently as the plant grows. So you get a consistency of not just getting at the top of the plant or at the bottom of the plant. That may change your analysis. And every plot has a minimum of 6 samples to a plot. So the smallest plots get 6 samples. And so the entire plant is not sampled. Only the buds is what actually gets sampled. So been analysis on different parts of the plant, leaves, stems at different stages. No, because only the buds is where the CBD comes from. The trichomes, the oil is formed in the flower buds. One of the things that we are looking at Lincoln is taking some of the extruded biomass that's left over from processing the CBD and looking at including it in livestock rations such as ruminants. We're going to be doing some testing to see what the protein content is, if that could maybe take the place of maybe alfalfa meal or some other things. Murray State has done some work with chickens. They did hemp seed to some layers, and their research found that they increased the omega-3s and omega-6s in eggs by 50% just on feeding extra hemp. So I think there's it's not legal to feed hemp to livestock yet. And so some of the research that's going to be needed is going to be done on the university level to find out what we can do, what the analysis is of the leftover plant. I was in North Carolina a while back, and one of the issues they have there is after they harvest the flowers off the plant, they're burning the plant because it does not break down when you put it back in the soil because it has the cordage and the fibers in it. Mm. So finding ways to use the leftover biomass to increase income to farmers is one of the things that we want to concentrate on when, look at hempcrete or some of the wood products. I've seen wood flooring, I've seen dimensional lumber, I've seen particle board made out of hemp, and maybe some of these plants that after the buds are pulled off of them could be ground up and used in those things. So those are areas that we want to look at.
Okay, that's great. I also heard that it makes good horse bedding. The Queen of England uses.
Yes.
Okay, so we have from Jojo Snyder, what percentage of your plot do you suggest dividing off for testing purposes?
As I said, I wouldn't have a plot for CBD more than 1 acre. And if you're growing multiple varieties, and I would ask you to grow multiple varieties to find out for yourself where your workhorses are that you want to plant next year. So you're going to have to do a little research on your own. If you're growing an acre of CBD, I'd probably grow 4 different varieties, and that gives you 4 different plots. And find out which one performs for you and works in your environment. And then next year, you'll know which ones to plant more of and which ones to plant less of. That's probably more important than anything. If you're doing for fiber or seed, it's not as important to divide those plots down real tight. You could do a 50-acre field of fiber, but that's going to take about 150 samplings for that plot. Is there more demand for organic acres for hemp grown for CBD? The way hemp is grown is basically grown as an organic crop unless you are organically certified. There is not a premium for organically certified hemp at this time, but buyers will buy it first. If that makes sense to you, they will choose that first over somebody else, but you're going to get the same price for it, is what processors are telling me.
It says, in regards to finding a processor, did you say to contact the Missouri Hemp Association for help?
Megan's on the call, and I've been working with her to find out who the processors are in Missouri. And there's also processors out of state if you want to move it out of state, but finding somebody local or somebody regionally to help you through this process is what would be best. And Megan, do you have a list of anybody that you know are processing in Missouri right now, or I know there's somebody up in Lafayette County that's looking at it, a couple of them around St. Louis, one in Springfield, and that's about all I know of processors for CBD at this time.
Yes, those are the same that I'm aware of. We are looking at some companies that are outside of the state, making connections with them. But the local market, seems to be where we're focused on right now. So we'll put that list together and hopefully have it to share soon, and hopefully more to add.
Okay, I got a message privately, David, that says this has been great so far. Glad you told me about it. So cheers to you. Then Dr. Babu says sampling procedures can be available from the Missouri Department of Ag website, or from the Certified Samplers, or Missouri Hemp Association, or from the Lincoln University Hemp Institute. So There's the hemp sampling procedures are not private information.
Yeah, all that information is on the Missouri Department of Agriculture hemp page. Do you have any insights into CBG prices? CBG seems to be the next item. There's 108 cannabinoids, and the first two that we're real familiar with are THC and CBD. There is a lot of push for CBG right now, and you see it priced at $80,000 a kilo. The thing is, nobody's buying it. You probably have to turn your CBG into CBD at this time. CBG is a precursor from THC to CBD. I know there's some work going on CBG, but it's not really into the same realm as CBD at this time. CBN is another one that people are looking at, and CBC. As time goes on, we're going to recognize all these other cannabinoids and what purpose they have. Off the record for right now, you know, they're seeing some help with CBN in sleep, anxiety, those sort of things. CBG, they are seeing some results with tumor reduction. This is not really widespread, and please don't repeat this, that I'm telling you that this works for these things, but that's some of the areas that they're working on right now. You know, if we can find plant-based production to take the place of some medicine, it works better in our bodies, because our bodies recognize something from the plant world better than it does from the petrochemical world. And so with the natural health movements, from the essential oils to the naturopaths and all of that, this is kind of where people are looking for pain relief, for anxiety, for sleep help. And so when we look at how things go, there's a thing in the industry called the hype curve. And that's when something starts out and it just goes crazy and everybody gets excited about it, and then it hits a peak. And then something happens like COVID-19, an economic downturn, and it crashes. Then it comes back and stabilizes at a sustainable rate. And I think right now we hit that bottom point 6 months before we actually anticipated it. So I would use this year as a learning curve. I wouldn't go overboard and want to plant 50 acres of CBD. And as a first time, I would really caution people to start small and learn. One of the processors that I work with that helps with farmers, he won't allow a farmer to grow more than 3 acres because he doesn't want you to risk more than what you can afford to lose. There are some things available out there. There is insurance. It is not against going hot. It's only against acts of nature such as hail, flood, wind, those sort of things. And that's through the Farm Service Agency, part of USDA, which you will have to go in and report your acreage to the FSA office in your county. And it's covered under whole farm revenue. That's where you get your insurance. And so if those are some things that if you're getting a loan from a bank to do this, you can get insurance to get some recovery over your initial cost.
Okay, we have another one from M Banks. Is testing done on the entire plant? Also, has there been oh, no, sorry, we already got that. Nope, I'm gonna stop talking.
Yeah, Dr. Patel just put up a link where you can get more information on hemp insurance right there. Yeah, at Lincoln University, we have what we call the Industrial Hemp Institute team. And if anybody like that on the call that's part of the team would like to introduce themselves right now, Dr. Patel, Dr. Babu, Dr. Clement, Any of you would like to go ahead and talk for a minute? I'm going to turn that over to you.
Okay, thanks, David. My name is Babu Vallioran. I am the chair of the Lincoln University Hemp Institute. And thank you all for attending this informative Hemp 101 webinar. At Lincoln University Hemp Institute, as David mentioned, we have several expertise tackling this new crop, to establish this new crop in the state of Missouri. As David mentioned, we are screening about 20 to 25 varieties from fiber hemp, seed hemp, dual varieties, and CBD, CBG varieties at different locations of the state of Missouri. And the purpose is to find the stable genetics for the farmers in the state of Missouri. And also we are looking for different genetic mechanisms, how we can improve different cannabinoids, like value-added crop. So we can improve more CBGs or CBN using new molecular biology or genetic technologies or techniques. At the same time, we are in the process of making a testing center for state of Missouri. So we will be testing all kinds of hemp products like THC, CBD, and also we'll be conducting complete biochemical fingerprint of different land races, wild species, and other varieties of the hemp to find out what are the potential cannabinoids or biochemicals we can take from this plant. And also we have good testing facilities. Like we have a non-conventional, conventional farm, research farm, and also we have a organic research farm. So we can conduct both organic and non-organic research at the Lincoln University. And we'll be happy to partner with any farmers who are or industries who want to test some of the varieties or try or lines at our Lincoln research programs. So with this, if you need anything about this plan, we'll be populating all those information at the Lincoln University Hemp Institute website soon. Meanwhile, if you need any information or any data, what we collected from other places, other universities, please feel free to contact us. And that's it from me. And I will pass this to Dr. Patel or Dr. Gonzalez or others.
Let me answer a couple questions here that have come in. Can you speak a little about the multiple climates of the region? That's one of our pilot projects going on this year, is we're going to grow the same varieties of fiber, seed, or CBD in 5 different locations around the state. So Northwest, Northeast, Southwest, Southeast, and Central Missouri, and get those data points and see if there's a variation in our climate enough to affect what that plant produces. Another question is, what's the advantage of growing clones over transplants or over seeds? Clones will give you a more consistent product. Clones cost more money. Clones don't have a taproot. When you start a seed and grow it into a transplant, it develops a taproot that makes the plant stronger. It's going to be more stable if you have a wind problem. So there's pluses and minuses to both. It depends on what your pocketbook can afford, because clones are going to cost $2 to $4, whereas I know seeds are now down to about 65 cents for some feminized seeds that I've seen. So if you need the consistency, or if you're just looking to experiment and grow a lot this year, you can tie up a lot of money in clones. Most of your clones are going to come in from out of state. Missouri regulations that everything this year has to start from seed, and then you can develop your mother plants for clones next year, is how the regulations are written. Do you know of any Missouri-based company to source OMRI certified soil from? Are there any specific mixes that are ideal for hemp? I don't know of anything like that. Most farmers are going to plant directly in their fields. I would caution you on not planting after corn because of the herbicide buildup. You would probably want to go after a crop that doesn't have some herbicide buildup in the soil, especially Roundup, because this plant is susceptible to the herbicides that are out there. And be sure you do some soil testing before you even plant. Be sure and take a soil test and find out what your nutrient needs are. For the research that I'm seeing for CBD is somewhere close to growing corn. It's a high nitrogen feeder. A lot of CBD is grown on raised beds with plastic mulch and drip tape, but that doesn't have to be done that way. Some of the equipment that you would probably need is working with a local vegetable farmer that does vegetables. If you need some plastic mulch laid, because there are no herbicides, you're going to deal with weeds. This is a plant that's going to grow from maybe the 1st of June to September, October. That's a lot of handwork. Unless you've got 14 kids that you want to send out there to chop weeds every day, that's going to be your main thing. So that's where the plastic mulch comes in. You can do cultivation. Some of the research that I'm seeing is delaying the planting of CBD until like from the 1st of June to the 20th. So you're not growing 6-foot tall plants, you're growing 3 or 4 foot tall plants to have less disease and pest pressure on those. But at the same time, increasing from like 1,800 plants an acre to maybe 2,400 plants an acre to get the same amount of biomass, only to reduce your pest and disease pressure. There is a lot of work being done on mechanization of CBD. There are some companies that are coming up with equipment that will harvest only the buds, much like a cotton picker that just strips the cotton bolls. There are some machines that are out there right now that will pull the buds basically off of the plant. The 8-foot harvester that I saw starts at $65,000. That's not economical yet, unless you're going a few hundred acres for a dedicated machine like that. So there is work coming. I think things are going to get better and easier as we get into this crop, as we figure it out and how to do things with machinery instead of hand labor. But growing CBD is going to be a lot of hand labor because you have to hand harvest it at this time. You have to hang it. You have to pull the buds off of it or run it through a threshing machine to pull the buds. All this equipment is out there and available if you research it. And so there are a lot of things that are on the horizon that we're looking at that's going to make this a more profitable crop down the road.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering to that end, like if there's recommendations for like how many people it takes to harvest like an acre, like harvest and process to the point of being able to take it to the processor. It was just for thinking about in terms of hiring, you know? But I'm not saying you need to answer that question right now. I was just thinking like how many people is this going to take?
You're going to not harvest everything on the same day is what's going to happen. If you can have 3 or 4 people, I know some of the guys that are harvesting the plants that are like 6 foot tall, 8 foot tall, they're cutting those down with a chainsaw because you can't cut them with a machete or an axe. You've got to basically run a chainsaw through them. Then you have to load it. Then you have to put it on a wire or pole or something to hang it to dry. And so what I would do is think that, scale appropriate for what you have. If you got an acre and you've got 4 different varieties, you could probably get by with 3 or 4 people to harvest that 1/4 of an acre in a day. If you're wanting to harvest 10 acres at once, I mean, that's getting mechanization. Trying to think of anything else that I've missed out on. But you've given us some ideas to look at and things that we need to head into. We will be holding a Lincoln Hemp Institute, probably in Jefferson City, after the growing season, November, December. And we'll present all of our research findings at that time and information that we've gleaned to help you get through the next year. The other thing that we're going to do is at these 5 different locations, we're going to have a mini workshop and just talk about what we're learning and have a field day at the same time. So you can come see what's going on at a location that's close to you and be able to talk to some specialists. Bring your questions, bring your concerns, and let us help you with those at this time. Those will probably be scheduled, I'm going to say August, September, somewhere in that range. And we'll put out information again through social media and Missouri Hemp Association and all. I've got 7 new messages. Miranda, you're not keeping up with me.
All right, David. Okay, I would like to introduce myself when there is a moment, says Ms. Allison Rowe.
Hello, may I introduce myself now?
Yes, please.
Okay, super. Hi, everybody. My name is Allison, or Allie. I am in San Francisco, and I'm working on a project with a bioscience company out here, and I've convinced them that hemp mold control or detection is a worthwhile project. They work with pharmaceuticals and big ag and chemical companies around the world with the science that detects scent the way the human nose does, and it's hugely sensitive. And I took that idea that with the detection they do, for example, with tomato plants to make the most fragrant ones, the ones that go to market, could be applied to what I believe is a huge problem in hemp. I've spoken with processors in Colorado who said that wet-baled hemp is a disaster for them, and they have to go to waste much of what they purchase, and they can't push it back to the farmers. So I don't know if that's true or how big of a problem it is. So I'm out in this interviewing stage trying to figure out if it's a big enough problem where I can bring this California company to the table to solve it and hopefully make lives better. Farmers could, for example, warranty at the point of shipment, not the point of testing, that their hemp is good. And farmers could represent it with accuracy. And then processors could warranty that when they verify it, when they take it in on their loading docks. So I'm trying to figure out how big is that problem and would the industry care to solve it? And anyone's help or 2 cents, I greatly appreciate it.
Well, Allison, I appreciate your email that I got from you yesterday, and I haven't had time to respond to you. So thank you for being on the call. At this time in Missouri, we don't know, but I know that at Lincoln, we would love to connect with you and work through this program, this problem, because yeah, it can be a problem, and anything that we can do to help our growers definitely is worth investigating.
I think so. Like in the research I did, and please tell me where I'm wrong, but I read that there are 149,000 acres of hemp planted in the US, but the number of acres needed to meet the CBD needs in the country are only 30,000 acres. And so my supposition is that, whoa, there's a lot of hemp in storage. That's where it could go bad if the water content is too high. But I don't know how much of this is true, but it would certainly help the farmers. I've spoken with a couple of small ones, and they said, oh my gosh, if I could get to the market that's oversaturated with supply and be able to guarantee at the moment that it leaves my loading dock to theirs that it's mold free, that would be really helpful. And then the big picture, I thought perhaps it would even get incorporated as a track and trace by bale, the way we track and trace cannabis in California. So I would love to partner with you. I'd love to work on this together. And I'm so glad that I came across this this Zoom today because it just is perfect for where I am in the research. So thank you.
And you're welcome. Jojo has a question. She didn't hear my answer on clones versus seed. Clones are more expensive. Clones don't have a taproot. And so you're going to get a more consistent production from buying clones, but you're going to also maybe suffer more damage in the field from them blowing over when they get bigger because they don't have the taproot. Seeds cost less. I've seen clones from $2 to $4. I've seen seeds, feminized seeds, as low as 65 cents. So we're talking, you know, when you're doing a couple thousand plants per acre, that extra cost, is it worth it? But transplants grown from seed have a taproot, which makes them stronger in the field. So it's kind of wherever you want to land on this, that's going to be your decision. That's not something that I have any idea on which way to go. So, hey, I thank everybody that's been on here today. I hope this has helped you. And it's kind of come time for us to conclude. So once again, thank you for being here. We hope that we can do things to help grow this industry in Missouri and make it sustainable and profitable for all of you. So thank you. Have a good day, and we'll let you know when other things are coming along.